We do want to have more reaction to the passing of Flip Saunders on this Sunday, and we'd like to bring in by phone another of our colleagues at NBA TV and TNT. Ernie Johnson is with us by phone right now. Ernie, are you there?
Yes, Vince, how are you?
I'm well, Ernie, and I was telling Steve Smith that it's been quite a summer heading into fall now, losing the likes of Daryl Dawkins and Moses Malone, and now we say goodbye to Flip Saunders. And you and I, Ernie, have covered the league, boy, together. I don't even want to mention how many years, but I know in my dealing, and I'm sure you would concur, with Flip Saunders, always a class individual, supportive, pleasant, and most of all, a competitor. I wanted to get your initial reaction on the passing of Flip.
Yeah, Vince, to me, Flip was always when you looked at him, you'd never say, hey, this guy's an NBA head coach. He was understated. He was a gentleman, and he was just a kind man. Just your regular run-of-the-mill father of four kind of a guy who you could sit and have a conversation with. It was never an intimidating kind of a thing. I mean, in the years that I've been around the NBA, and it's been more than 25 years, there are certain guys who are in that profession who can be intimidating. You almost don't want to approach them because your relative lack of knowledge of the game will so pale in comparison to his that they'll let you know it. And with Flip, you were always just able to talk basketball or talk life with him, and he was just a regular guy who happened to be an exceptional basketball coach. And I feel so much for his family and for his son Ryan, who's following in his footsteps as an assistant coach, and it's just hard, man. It's just hard.
Ernie, I wonder if I could ask you from a personal standpoint, as a cancer survivor yourself, when you hear or when you read reports that what Flip was going through, and he was diagnosed with Hodgkin lymphoma, and this was back in June, and we had some initial positive reports and then not so positive after that. How do you process what you hear regarding someone's progress in dealing with this situation?
It's very difficult, Vince, because one thing you realize, and I mean, I have to go back many years. I mean, I was diagnosed back 12 years ago, and it had chemotherapy for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma back in 2006. What you realize right away is that you can get kind of confused by the wording. You can hear, well, it's Hodgkin's lymphoma, it's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, it's lymphoma, it's large.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, so you don't know for sure exactly what it is. And there are so many different kinds. And so the first time I heard that Flip was not feeling well and that he'd been diagnosed, I said, well, he's a relatively young guy at 59 at the time. I said, and he's in shape and he's healthy, and he'll whip this. And you never know exactly what all the factors are that are going into it. And so I know when I've spent the last month on the road doing baseball, and somebody had come up and told me, said, hey, have you talked to Flip lately? And I was like, you know what? I need to get in touch and see exactly what's going on. And I sent a text to his son Ryan, and I just said, hey, look, give your dad my best. You know, I've been down this road, so if he ever wants to just talk, here's the number. And I never heard anything back, and that was 2-3 weeks ago. And then I had read that he was not going to coach this year, and then I was just on the road today when I got the phone call that notified me that he had passed. And so, look, it's remarkably difficult for a family to go through this thing. I can't even imagine what the Saunders family is going through right now, because, look, I went through something. I'm a survivor. I saw what it did to my family, my kids who were so concerned. Is Dad going to be okay? And now to think that they've had those same thoughts and they've had those same worries and anxiety, and they've had all the support from people around the league, and now to come to the realization of this, I just, man, my heart just goes out to them.
I think we all feel the same, Ernie. You know, while you were speaking, we did have a great picture of Flip and Kevin Garnett, and few of us really have the opportunity in our professions to make the kind of impact that Flip Saunders did with the Minnesota Timberwolves in their heyday, and when Kevin Garnett came into the league and played really like no one else. And I just wanted to ask you about some of your recollections of watching the T-Wolves and covering them back then, and that exciting brand of basketball that he brought in, and being able to build that and put them on the map up in Minneapolis and at the Target Center.
You know, the kind of guy that Flip Saunders was getting, Vince, I mean, he was just, it was like letting a puppy into the house to just go crazy. That was Kevin Garnett back then. I remember we were still doing the draft at that point when Kevin Garnett was drafted. And Hubie Brown was working the draft with me. And I recall the two of us saw Kevin Garnett in the lobby of the hotel the day before the draft. And he came up, you know, he's a teenager at the time, and he's giving us dap, and he's saying, "Hey, EJ, we watch all the time." And Coach Brown, love your action. I mean, that was the kind of, and Hubie, all Hubie could do was just laugh. "Oh, okay, kid, I hear you." And that was the kind of guy that Flip was getting right then. And he would, you know, he would play with Marbury, and it was, you know, that was a team right there that was there to be molded. And you can tell just from Kevin Garnett's reaction today, as now, you know, it makes us all feel old when we look and we see Kevin Garnett and remember him as a teenager, and now we see him in the twilight of his career as kind of a mentor. And he had a kind of a mentor in Flip Saunders there at the beginning, who was going to say, "Hey, kid, here's what the league is going to be like." And let's, you know, he was able to take this kind of raw talent and mold him, and you see that the influence that Flip Saunders had on Kevin Garnett's career. So, yeah, that's kind of the deal. And I think about Flip too. You know, something else about him is he's the guy. He came up through the ranks. Remember when the CBA used to be the thing? You know, that used to be, you know, before there was any D-League, and if folks who were new to the league and hear about the developmental league and that kind of the D-League, back when they had the CBA, you had guys like George Karl cutting his teeth there. You had guys like Flip Saunders cutting his teeth there and proving to those in the NBA, this guy has what it takes to be an NBA head coach. And he certainly proved them all right.
Ernie, spot on. Thank you so much. I'm sorry under these circumstances, buddy, really, but you know, you hit it on the head in terms of Kevin Garnett and Flip Saunders allowing KG to become that player, to have that personality, to bring that exuberance to the league. I remember KG being the first guy I heard someone call someone dog. One of the announcers said, "Thanks, dog," and that was you know, just him blossoming along with that team. But thank you so much for your time, Ernie, and we'll see you back here in studio.
Vince, thanks a lot for having me on. I appreciate it, and certainly prayers for the whole Saunders family.
Absolutely.